Per
Yes.
crazy
That
madness.
World
He's
Cup, my
it.
God, that year
Yes.
he was incredible.
Yes. He's still one of the craziest goalkeeper I've ever seen in my life. And yes, 98 is close to my heart. That's
You know what
that
was my favorite game in that entire tournament? A lot of people would say, was it the final? Like, no, it was the game they had against Paraguay. That game
that was a
was
rough one.
so intense.
Yes.
Oh my God. And it ended in a golden goal, right? But
My
both
very
teams
one.
gave everything in that game. They left it out on the field. I remember watching the game and feeling physically exhausted after watching that. And people were saying it was a 0-0 draw for most of the
That's the
match.
point.
How could that be exciting? I was like, you have to watch this game. It was crazy. It was wall to wall. Just they were just going at each other, and both goalkeepers played out of their minds in that game.
And if you watch, and even to this day now, if you go to a lot of corners of Paris, you are going to see a lot of people are wearing Paraguay jerseys, and because they literally had almost like the biggest respect from French football on that time, because I think that was probably the hardest game that that team have had for the entire World Cup, because they pretty much waltzed through the rest of the teams, including Brazil.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
Brazil did
yes.
not show up for that final.
No, well, if you think you're gonna win it and they got too comfortable, and then Ronaldo probably partied too much. That's
Yeah,
but
he looked really bad in that game.
yes,
Anyway, we're sidetracking.
yes, yeah,
Sorry.
oh, definitely. But yes, so for those kids, so you have your show where you kind of bring those up
Yes.
and
Sorry
discuss them
about
because
that.
you
Yeah.
love those jerseys. No, hey, that's the passion. It's a green screen, but there's kits all across behind that. So I definitely understand. So I know maybe LA Galaxy kits are your most prized jersey, but is there one jersey that you have in your house that if somebody says, "Hey, you have a huge collection," that kit is the one that you show them?
San Marino.
The San Marino. All right,
Oh my God. And the reason I bring that up is because one, they are literally one of the worst teams in the world, right?
and
And
the worst field to
you know,
play into.
I mean, they're such a small little team, right? And this is getting that kit was such a journey because obviously I don't live in Italia.
Yeah.
I used to have a friend. Well, I had a friend that used to live in Italia, but he's not there anymore. And so, how do you get a kit like that? Well, I contacted their federation,
Mhm.
which is
Ooh.
one guy in charge of everything, right? And so I told him, hey, I want to buy your kit. What do I do? And he's like, well, he's like, you got to wire us the money from your bank, and then we'll include also the price of shipping, and then we'll send it to you.
Ooh,
So I
that
was
sounds
like, okay.
expensive.
So they sent me what it was going to be costing, and it wasn't too much. But I
Okay.
remember I
Oh,
paid
nice.
it, and then I waited, and I waited, and a month went by, and 2 months went by, and at that point I'm like, hey, what's going
I
on?
got
Hey,
hustled.
what happened to my money, right?
Yeah.
So I contacted my bank, and I was like, hey, what happened with this money? And they're like, oh no, the wire went through. And I was like, to what bank? It was like, and they're like, oh, it was to this bank in San Marino. So I had to contact the bank in San Marino, and they were like, oh, we received the funds. I was like, what's going on? And they're like, oh, well, you got to contact the team and find out what's going on with them. So I remember I emailed the guy, and he finally got back to me, and he said, I'm really sorry. He goes, but we've all been very sick. Everybody here got COVID. Everybody. He
Oh.
goes like all the office staff and the players, we all got COVID and we've been sick for like the last month. I was like, oh
Oof.
my God. That's how you know it's such a small federation, right? Where it's like three guys running the whole thing. But and then he told me, I'm sorry we haven't sent you your kit, but there's also the an issue with customs that you have to pay an
Hmm.
extra fee to have it shipped out of the country.
Yep.
So I'm gonna have to charge you one more time. I'm like, that's fine, whatever it takes. So I paid the fee, and they shipped it out to me. And when I got it, I was like, it's a beautiful kit, right? I wish I could have got it, but I
Oh,
don't.
I've seen.
And I was like, it's such a beautiful kit, and it's so hard to get, and it's so rare. And I would show him like, look at this thing.
Yeah,
It's
and then
so
they ask
rare.
you, where's San Marino? Because unless you watch enough massacre from other teams, or if you've lived in Europe, you will know of them. But I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
So I
no,
totally understand. So you definitely have a story behind that kit, and you've had to work for it, and you maybe thought you got hustled, but it was just that the whole federation got sick.
yeah.
So
Even the Cape Verde kit was easy to get. I remember I went on their federation's website. They tell you how much it costs. $60, by the way. $60. What a steal. It's
yeah,
such a
that's
nice
that's
kit.
nothing now. Yes.
And so I bought it, and it came to me like in like 10 days. I was like, ah,
Okay.
sweet. That was cool. Straight from Cape Verde. I'm like, that was cool. 10
Wow,
days.
you went straight
Uh,
from Africa all the way to here. That's
yeah,
that's pretty good.
it
So
is.
was there one? Is there one kit that you have that's like that's not my favorite, and that you maybe tuck it a little bit further out? Then
Um, not not really. I think I've been very selective
okay,
about all my kids. So every one of them has some kind of uh some kind of meaning to me. I have a lot of rare kids. I have a World Cup '94 Roberto Baggio Italia shirt,
oh
which is really
yes,
nice. I have a Leo Messi Barcelona jersey from 2008, which is really nice.
not bad.
Um, and I have a huge collection of U.S. soccer kits from as far back as 1993. So I have most of the World Cup kits all the way up until the last World Cup, which was in Qatar.
That's amazing. So you're definitely a kit lover because you couldn't say which one is your least favorite. So mad respect on that one.
Yeah,
So yes, and so part of the show that you have as well, you do have news across the galaxy with your two buddies. So could you tell us a little bit more? How that came about, and how's the show going? Because you guys have one of the longest standing shows that I can tell.
yeah. It made actually the show News Across the Galaxy. The founders were my co-host Eddie and Bryant. They, if you talk to them, they pretty much say something to like, "Hey, we love the team. We love talking about the team, and we have all this equipment.
Yeah,
Why don't we just put up a camera and start talking about the team and start streaming it?" And they're like, "Okay." So they started doing it, and then they were also friends with a guy who was a producer. His
yeah,
name is Chewy,
yep.
and they started the show. So when you see when you see their early episodes, it was very rough, right? So
We're
that was in
all been there.
2015.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, when you start, right, you think you know what you're doing, and then as you go by, you're like you learn a lot more, and then you go back and you look at, you're like, oh my god, did I look like that? Did I sound like that? Dear God! But that's the beautiful thing, right? You're learning and improving, and your audience is also maturing with you
Yeah.
as you're going through this journey. So, in late 2019, I had already been watching their show,
Mm,
and I remember I'm not a journalist at this point. Like I said, I wanted to be a doctor at one point, a pre-med
yeah,
bio, and that didn't work out. So I shifted my attention to becoming a journalist. Journalism. I worked as the main senior writer for Dove magazine from
yeah.
2005 to 2008, and I interviewed hundreds of celebrities and athletes, and that was fun. But then when the economy crashed, I lost my job. So I was unemployed for a while, and I was jumping freelancing here and there. And I finally got into the world of technical writing, which is completely different. And I've been working for a PR firm for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So um, it's not a lot of creative writing. I mean, you have to be really creative with how you present your company because
Mhm.
I write proposals.
Yeah.
So our company can get a job with like an agency or some other client. So that's what I normally do. But in the back of my mind, I was like, man, I wish I could still do something with the team, or with related to it. And so I saw their show, and I thought to myself, these guys are really fun.
Mhm.
I was like, but I feel like maybe I could contribute something. I have all this experience. Maybe I could, contribute some of that. So I contacted them, and they said, it's the end of the season. Um, we'll keep you in mind, and we'll hit you up at the start of the next season. Well, obviously, the next season was 2020. so
Special
so they
season, yes.
yeah, so they brought me in at the beginning, and we did a couple shows where we were, I was kind of feeling out what it was going to be like. And it was a lot of fun. I was kind of nervous because I'm a writer, so I'd
Yeah,
never been behind a camera or in front of a microphone. And so, but eventually I started finding my footing, and then COVID happens, right? And everything gets shut down.
yep,
And so, right around that time, my wife had a baby. He was born 2 months premature, and so that was pretty crazy because it was right after the quarantine started,
yeah,
and we were in the hospital, and it was scary. And so, the baby had to stay in the hospital for like 5 weeks. And I remember I needed like kind of like an escape. And so the podcast was there. And so I started talking to the guys in the podcast,
yeah,
and started having shows, and it helped me kind of, deal with the whole pressure of not only the pandemic, but having my son in the hospital. And then when he came home, we kept doing shows in which we were wondering how long the pandemic was going to last, and quarantine and all that. And obviously, the league eventually came back. And that's how I got my start with News Across the Galaxy. One of the cool things was, as things started to normalize, I had all these friends, contacts from the early years of LA Galaxy.
right,
So there were no games going on. So what do we do? So I started contacting some of my friends and asking, hey, can you come on the show? So one of the first ones was this guy named Ozzy Gomez. He was the original president of the Galaxian Supporters Club. So we
yep,
had him come on, and we talked about the history of the supporters club, how it started, and the relationship they've had with the team throughout the years, and the kinship they had with them. And then after that, started inviting players. I had the original Galaxy captain Dan Kalichman come onto the show. He's now one of the assistants for Greg Vanny. I had
nice,
Kevin El Gato Hartman come on the show. He was a former Galaxy goalkeeper, and now he's also one of the assistant. He's the goalkeeping coach for the Galaxy. And I also had Hercules Gomez come on the show, Galaxy legend Eduardo Hurtado, who's from Ecuador. He came on the show live all the way from Ecuador. And
nice.
so it was really nice to have these guys, respond and come onto the show. And for Eddie and Bryant and Chewy, and for some of the other younger Galaxy fans who had never got a chance to see these guys play in the early years, or have only heard about them, to actually talk to them and listen to them talk stories about what it was like, what MLS was like in the early years, and the stuff they had to deal with. It was very, not just entertaining, but very eye opening for them. And to see how much the league had matured and improved in the way that they not only operate, but the way that they treat players.
Right.
It was very interesting.
Wow,
Just to give you a perspective, by the way, Mo, in the early years, Eduardo Hurtado, he's from Ecuador, a big, giant forward, right? He told us that um, before they used to practice in the lawn outside the Rose Bowl. And Dan Kalichman corroborated on the story. He's like, yep, this is true. So they would play on the grass outside the stadium, and there was broken glass and rocks. And before every practice, the players would go through the field, and they would pick up all the broken glass and rock so they could practice.
wow. So that was so so MLS players are quite spoiled now when they have all the nice training ground next door to their stadiums. So these guys had to pretty much clean up before playing,
Yes.
which yeah, that sounds almost like a third world country first problem, not
Yeah,
middle of
right.
America with professional soccer players.
No,
And
it's grown a lot, man.
yes, and I love the fact that you were able, even though the pandemic kind of closed the door for everything, you were kind of able to bring some of the original MLS 1.0 and 2 to kind of press reset with your younger co-hosts so that they get to experience that because I don't think there's the good thing about MLS was it's still growing is the fact that it's still close enough that a lot of the players or management are not like as untouchable. We still have that, even though it's not as close as like you mentioned before. You still can reach out to some players or the front office compared to our European counterparts of South Africa and others.
Yeah, no, it is true. The players are still relatively approachable now. I talked about how things changed when Beckham came over, but there was nothing like those early years, Mo.
No,
Because
that's impossible.
let me tell you, the players would say, "Oh, on an off day, right, when they weren't playing, they would say, um, um, we're gonna be at this restaurant. We're gonna
Oh,
be,
yeah.
hanging out at this bar." And they would say, "Hey, you guys can come and hang out with us." And so you would go and you would have dinner with the players. I
Mm,
had my press pass, and you know what was really cool? I wasn't even 21, right? I had my press pass, and the Galaxy used to play in Pasadena at the
mhm,
Rose Bowl, and Pasadena it's famous for Old Town Pasadena. It's a nice little area there. It has a lot of restaurants and shops and bars, and the nightlife there is amazing. A lot of people, not just locals, but a lot of tourists go there to
right,
enjoy the clubs and the bars. And I found out that a lot of the MLS players, when they would come into town, that's where they would go and party. And I
mhm,
remember one of the Galaxy players told me, "Hey, we're gonna be at Moose's, which is it's no longer around, but it was a bar." He's like, "We're gonna be at
dang.
Moose's." He's like, "You want to join us?" I'm like, "Well, I'm only 20." And he's like, "Well, do you have a press pass?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Just show it at the front door. They'll let you in for free." I'm like, "What?"
Like, right? Yes.
So I'm like, "All right, let's try this out, right?"
Yeah.
So I walk up in there, and I'm like, and they're like, "Let me see your ID." And I'm like, "Show my press pass." He's like, "Yeah, I go in." Like, so I go to the
They-
back and I see the players like shooting pool, having drinks, and they're like, "Hey, what's up, man? You made it. How you doing?" And like you dap me up. So I saw some stuff. Well, I saw some stuff. I would see girls hanging out with the players, guys leaving with girls. Players from
Girls,
rivals. Rival teams. Hanging out. Having drinks together. Maybe they're beating the crap out of each other on the field, but after the games, they were buddy buddies.
oh, yeah.
It was fun. I got to hang out with so many players from other teams that you normally wouldn't be able to do that, right? And nowadays, that's unheard of, right? Unless you
No,
run into a player.
it's rare for that part. I guess there's maybe that tier of players that some of maybe more reachable than others, but
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I think so. Sounds like you know where some of the bodies are buried. So, well, Edgar is it. So yeah, so especially talking to the podcast sphere and how you guys started in like 2019 and others, and now you're starting to see more teams in the MLS, and now you're starting to see a lot more podcasts and a lot more freelancers and independent creators. So how it's like for you now to see, the days that you were in the press box and you were the only kid there to now seeing each team has, 5, 10 content creators that are spending X amount of
It,
time to support their own team.
it's beautiful. I love it. And I always, whenever we have guests on our show for previews or just other shows, I always tell them how much I appreciate all their work and all the time that they devote to this because many of us don't get paid for this, right? We do it because we love the sport. Um, and so I tell them, the one thing I always remind them is um, if there's a sport that does a fantastic job of chronicling its history, it's Major League Baseball. Baseball does a fantastic job of curating its history because everybody knows who Babe Ruth is.
Yep.
People know who Mickey Mantle was, Jackie Robinson. I mean, Jackie Robinson is beyond baseball though. He's like an American hero. Um,
Yes.
and so, but what I'm trying to say is that you know who these people are because baseball has done a great job of preserving its history.
Mhm.
Football, not so much. Like I said, a lot of people don't remember that the Brooklyn Field Club was the first team that won the U.S. Open Cup. They don't know
Mhm.
what the Bethlehem Steel Football Club did. It was one of the best American teams, in the 30s and 20s. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think that soccer in the U.S. started with the NASL when Pelé came over and Beckenbauer, right? And no,
Most
no,
do,
it's been
yes.
around for a really long time. And we mentioned St. Louis. St. Louis had a lot of contributions. Look at the roster of the team that went to the World Cup in 1950. You'll find some fellows from St. Louis that were very integral to that team that beat England in that World Cup. But a lot of people don't know about these things because nobody really took the time to care and keep this history. So I tell these people, like you, Mo, I tell you, people like you're journalists. You're writing the stories and you're chronicling the stories of our sport for not just the people now, but people in the future can later on go back, watch a video, read a story about something that you did, and they'll learn about the history. And it's something to carry with them throughout their entire life. And it's something that it's a thread that will tie us together as we go along. And I tell people, you are writers, you are people that are curating the history of the sport, whether it's Major League Soccer or some of the other, lower divisions.
Right.
You're doing something um, that Major League Baseball did forever. Now you're doing it for Major League Soccer, and even though we don't get the attention that some the NFL or NBA does, the people that care, they will go and they will find you and they'll listen to you and they will hang on to you because they not only love the sport, they'll love the content that you provide
Yeah.
because it brings them that much closer to the team that they love so much in the sport. So you, Mo, and everybody else, that does this, I send you a big warm embrace and I say thank you so much what you do for our beautiful sport because every little bit counts.
Absolutely. And I would say, I think what kept me going, we'll say a lot, is also other teams reaching out. Because I think one of the biggest things is, yes, you have that excitement having your team in the others. And yes, we know we have to have a few rivals here and there. But at the end of the day, it's all about soccer. It's not about MLS. It's not about the teams. It's about pretty much the whole community that you have to create to make it as big or bigger than the other sports, right? The more coverage, and I think the most of it is the less people getting paid to create this content, it is more authentic than if you know you have to just meet a quota
And you said
because
it right
that's
there,
what your job is.
authentic and pure,
Uh,
right?
Yes.
And I was very fortunate. Like I said, my wife's from North Carolina, and so when Charlotte FC came around, I had a level of interest. I have a friend that lives out in Charlotte, so I knew that at some point I was going to be out there and I was
Right.
going to be able to catch a game. And so, although I haven't been to a Charlotte game yet, but I remember like I started watching, the team, and then I heard about how these guys started a podcast there, which is called CLTFC Fan TV, and so I started watching them, and I noticed that they for one game for Atlanta they brought on a guest, and I was like, hey, that's a cool idea, because for the longest time we would have our match previews, and it was just us talking about their team based on what we saw or what we read,
Yeah.
but there's only so much you can do, right? I was like, why not get somebody who's an expert on the team, who lives, breathes the team, and can tell you exactly what's really going on. So I told the guys, hey, I want to start a show just in the middle of the week that we start bringing on guests and we start asking them questions about their team. And at the beginning, it was kind of rough, right? Like everything, right? But eventually, I put together like a template and I started writing scripts Sometimes I would write these scripts literally minutes before going on, but the point for me was try to make it fun and sometimes funny, and just have a nice conversation with the people that I'm having on the show. Now, I've been a journalist. God, I see how long. 28 years.
Hey,
And so I've been very fortunate because one of the things that Graham Jones, I bring him up again, he told me was when you do an interview, he said, don't make it sound like an interrogation. Remember, make it a conversation. You know, have your questions, but have a conversation. You're chatting, you know, and those are the most natural and genuine conversations you could have, and you could get amazing quotes from that. So it's something I
absolutely.
always try to remember, and also in journalism, they always tell you that as well. Um, in 1999, I'm gonna pat myself a little bit on the back. I was chosen as
You
one of the
earned
top.
it.
Well, 99, I was chosen as one of the top college journalists in the nation by
Mhm.
USA Today, and I got a scholarship and a internship to be a sports writer at the Wichita Eagle in Kansas. So
Nice.
I went out to Kansas. I lived out there. I know what the Midwest is like in the summer and in the early winter. It's brutal, man.
Sure is.
I can still hear the cicadas in the summer.
Mm.
So and tornado. Oh my God! Don't get me started about tornadoes. Whenever I have
Hey,
the Kansas guys on,
so you know the folks, right? They just stay on their porch and watch a tornado go through.
oh my God! No,
Yeah.
I had a tornado come through my neighborhood, and I thought I was gonna die.
And they were all on their porch watching.
Well, I
So
mean, it
yeah.
was like in the middle of the night, and
Yeah.
the lights were out, and the light the it was raining so hard, it was raining sideways, and I was
Ooh.
like, I'm gonna die here. But the thing is that I got to travel, and I got that amazing experience, and so I did dabble in journalism at that point, and some of the best interviews I always had were the ones where it's not an interrogation, it's a
Yeah.
conversation, and um, I had a wonderful interview with Method Man from the Wu Tang Clan, where on a day where he
Shut
was
up.
in a
What?
really bad mood. Yeah, Meth is my homie. I got to interview
Dang.
Method Man,
Now I'm jealous.
got to interview Ghostface Killer.
Mm.
Had a really nice conversation with Exhibit. Also got to interview Snoop Dogg. I'm just name dropping here, right?
Come on,
All
you just
these
name dropping now, just for the heck of it now. Dang.
Tyrese. I mean, this is really wonderful people. John Cena, I got to interview him twice.
Wow. Dang.
Batista, Drax the Destroyer, him, got to interview him too. So it's been nice. I got to have these all these wonderful experiences, and I could tell you that almost every single one of those interviews was nice because it was a conversation. So I always
Mhm.
remember that when I do stuff with football, and yeah, I lost my train of thought here.
No,
I forgot where I
I'm
was
I'm
going.
loving it because I was going to ask you, a tip that you can give to future podcasters or journalists, and you pretty much answered it already when it comes to every interviews, the questions are it's more of a discussion versus an
Yeah,
integration. So
like right now we're having a
yeah.
conversation, right?
Hey, I have 5 questions that I want to ask for a person based on their history, but other than that, for me, it's just on piggyback on what your story is, because that's your football story.
Yeah, some other if it's advice I would give to people. Some of my the best advice I can give would be prepare ahead of time, research the person,
Yeah,
right? Have like you said, have like at least five main questions, and then make sure to have space to write other questions as you're listening to the person.
yeah,
Another thing I always was told was, what, listen to the person, do not interrupt them until they're finished talking, and even after they're done talking, wait like a little bit because sometimes people will say a little bit more and you'll get bonus answers. Um and uh the other thing was, like I said, make it fun. It's a conversation. Don't get nervous, relax, take a deep breath. Whatever you have to do to relax before the interview, um, do it, and enjoy it. And later on, you can go back and say, "What an amazing conversation I had." My favorite
yeah.
interview ever was with Magic Johnson. I got to spend a couple hours with him, and how can I describe Magic Johnson? It's like I always tell people it's like coming in from a winter storm and sitting down next to a warm fireplace and just
Yeah.
relaxing. It's just his smile, his demeanor, just a really nice human being. And that was probably my most favorite interview, but it was because
Yeah.
I treated him with respect and we had this nice conversation. And so that's my advice to people who also respect your guest and treat them with respect and with dignity throughout the entire conversation.
Hey, you've been around for 28 years, so you know what you're talking about. So, yes. And so, I guess for the last part of when it comes to the MLS, so now you've seen San Diego is still in the playoffs as a brand new team showing, um, some of the West Coast excitement again. So, how do you see um, one San Diego because of the new team, and also playoffs are kicking off again. So how are you feeling about that? Um, one, San Diego coming in as a brand new team, and then the playoff for MLS kicking off again.
Yeah, with San Diego, um, I'm a little torn because I remember when Sacramento Republic got an expansion,
Mhm.
and I always felt, and I still feel, and also I have a Sacramento Republic jersey somewhere, by the way, but I have
There
two,
you go. Yes, sir.
and I always felt like Sacramento was a team that was built for MLS. That was their
Mhm.
slogan, built for MLS. And when the pandemic happened, and there was a lot of uncertainty as to how long this was going to last, and
Mhm.
that was around the time when Sacramento Republic was supposed to be preparing to come into MLS, and one of their owners decided, he got cold feet and decided to leave the team, and the team lost that investor, and because of that, they were not able to get the funding that they needed to come into
Oh,
MLS, which was terrible. Their fans deserved so much. Whenever I run into any Sacramento fans, I always tell them, I'm really sorry. I felt like you guys we had already invited them. We're like, you're welcome to our MLS family. And then they got the rug pulled out from under them. It was terrible. So
mm,
then LAFC came along, right? And then you hear about another California team who's going to come, and it's San Diego. And I said, well, I guess that makes sense. But at the same time, I feel like the league really screwed over Sacramento or just completely ignored them. But not to take anything away from San Diego
right.
because they had San Diego loyal before and they had a nice following, and you could tell that the people there were hungry for a club of their own because some of them were Galaxy fans, but not really, and some of them were Club Tijuana fans because they're right across the border.
Yeah.
But they needed something that they could embrace on their own. The San Diego Chargers had left town because their owner is a scumbag. Um,
Mm,
they lost their basketball team to LA, which used to be the Clippers. So and then they just have the Padres, who they always run into the Dodgers in the playoffs, and so they needed something else to embrace, and so they got San Diego FC, and it went from because we had they have a big podcast down there, right? San Diego
right.
football, and we invited the guys onto the show as a preview before the first game of the season. And it went from like, hey, welcome, you guys are, welcome to our family, you guys are, viewing the league and let us wish you the best to and now it's gotten to the point where like, hey, take it easy. You guys are out of control now, calm down.
You're doing too
But
much.
no,
Too
they
well.
were yeah, they were very smart with how they built that team. Like I said, they had better than Chucky Lozano as
Yeah.
the face of the franchise, but behind everything, they had Dryer. My God, what a solid
Mm,
player!
ridiculous.
He MVP candidate. He could have if he won it, I would have been like, whatever, no big deal.
Mm,
And you kept waiting the whole season for them. They're gonna fall apart, right? They're gonna fall apart. I know some Galaxy fans are saying, they might end up like St. Louis, right? They
mm,
get to the playoffs and then the wheels come off. And no,
mm.
they went in there and they all guns
Spanked.
blazing. And now you look at them and they're running up against the Minnesota team. And no disrespect to Minnesota because they slayed their dragon, which was
Mhm.
Seattle. but they're running up against a team that's like on fire right now, San Diego. And I heard that Dreyer got hurt last week
Ooh,
and during his international match with Austria, but the last report I heard was that he's been cleared to play. I think depending on his health and his form, that will determine how well San Diego does. If he is injured and they're just saying, it's not a big deal, and then he goes out there and he actually gets hurt, I think that's going to be a
makes sense.
huge blow to them. But I don't see why they should not defeat Minnesota, who is a good team. They have a good defense. Um, but San Diego's just too much at this point. And as far as the rest of the playoffs is concerned, we have some tasty matches. My God, Vancouver and LAFC. I was talking to an LAFC podcaster named Daniel, and like I keep in touch with a lot of LAFC podcasters. I was like,
Hey,
picking their mind for like ideas on what's going on. And Daniel said, "This is an MLS Cup final right here.
I
This
would say
this
so.
is,
Yeah,
I mean, Mueller versus Son, and it just so happens that they're meeting in the playoffs. And, I want to say that Vancouver is going to have enough to defeat them, but that combination of Boanga and Son is so
uh,
difficult to deal with, um, and I could see it going either way. But LAFC seems supremely confident heading into this match, and I wouldn't be surprised if they won. I personally would love to see Vancouver win, not because of LA Galaxy LAFC rivalry, but I just feel
you
like,
sure? You sure?
but no, I mean, I'm being very impartial here because I just feel like Vancouver is a team that's always been on the brink, on the edge of something bigger, and they finally have everything lined up to try to win a cup, and then they have to run into LAFC, who has beat them in the last two previous playoff matches. So that's going to be hard for them. And then you have the East, Minnesota, Miami. I mean, I'm sorry, Cincinnati and Miami. Wow, another good match. Since a lot of people are focusing on Messi, meanwhile, uh, Cincinnati is such a solid team. You can't sleep on them. They're such a strong team. Um, I'm gonna say Cincinnati wins that one. And then everybody is gonna run around crazy in Miami, like Chicken Little. Oh my God, the sky is falling. Miami
Yeah,
is a
sure.
failure.
They're about to clean house, but messy. If
Yeah,
that
yeah.
happens,
So this is their last opportunity to move on. But another one that's also on the edge of a knife is Philadelphia versus New York City FC. The Pigeons against the Snakes. My God, if you look at the history of their rivalry, it's so even. They have the same amount of wins. They have four draws or eight draws between them, and they beat each other 1-0 on the road both times this season. So it's like, who's gonna win?
yeah, you
But
don't
then
know.
again, NYCFC suffered an injury to Alonso over the week, and I think that's going to be too difficult for them to overcome. I can see Philly advancing in this match. I would say 2-1, and then as far as who's going to win MLS Cup, I don't know. There's so many teams um, that feel that this is their year. They work hard to put together all the ingredients for an MLS Cup. You have LAFC, Vancouver, Cincinnati, Miami, right? San Diego. I mean, who's going to lift the cup? I think San Diego, they're just happy to be where they are. They have a solid team. Obviously, they could push for a cup, but are they going to get past LAFC or Vancouver? I don't think so. Um, and then on the other side, I think whoever wins between Inter Miami and Cincinnati is going to go on to MLS Cup. No disrespect, I mean, to Philadelphia. I just feel like those teams right now are really solid, and they're going to come off that game feeling like on top of the world because they just beat a really strong team. So I think it's going to be uh, either LAFC in Vancouver versus Cincinnati in the final. I know the
Wow.
league would love to have LAFC versus Miami in the final because
Yeah,
they can
well,
market the
Vancouver and
crap out of
Miami,
it.
they at least one of their staple big face to face each other because I think that's what they all
Uh,
want.
Hey, Mueller versus Messi. That'll be a rematch of World Cup 2014.
Yeah, well, there's one team does not want to remember what happened,
Yeah,
but
right.
but uh, I think for me as a neutral, I'm enjoying it, even though maybe Philadelphia because of Carnell, Minnesota because I have Mamadou Dia over there. So I will definitely watch and see how it goes. But as long as Miami does not win it, I think I'll be happy. Yes.
By the way, here I got something to share.
Oh boy. Yes.
This is the St. Louis patch. I wanted to share this because
Hey,
you know Jeremy,
yes, that's our
um,
good friend Jeremy. Yes.
our good friend Jeremy. Him and I were, we keep in touch, and
I told him we were talking today
I've
too.
had a wonderful relationship with St. Louis fans. When they came down here earlier this year, I got to meet several of them, and they were so nice. And I
Yes.
actually interviewed them on my for my Instagram page. You could check out that interview, and I also like took photos with them. And one of them, um, she gave me her little pin that said, St. Louis City Punk, and
Yeah.
it has a little fist on it, and I loved it. And so I asked Jeremy, hey, is it possible to get some more St. Louis swag? And my God, he went around and started asking all these different supporters groups, and I got so much stuff. I just want to share it. I got these
Yep.
patches.
Arsenal. Yep.
The bigger the messy one, I got this one.
Yeah. Oh, that. Yes. That's
Got
the good
this one.
Cali one. Yes.
The Ravioli Boys, and then he got me the St. Louis versus LA patch, and I
Yep.
got stickers, for the St. Louis man, the Fandalorians, right?
The
So, and
St.
then
Louis, yeah, they float everywhere.
let's see, I got more stuff here to share. Let me bring it up real quick because I loved it. He asked me, "Would you like a scarf?" I'm like, "I would love a scarf." So he got me this one, right, which is
Yep.
really cool.
The
I really
Confluence
like
one.
this scarf.
Yep.
So I have this one right here, and put it over here real quick. So I have this
Jeremy's
one,
going to die when he sees that's
and then he got me
STL
this one too.
Santos. Yes.
Yes, I got that one, and a St.
And
Louligans
St. Louis
one.
against the OG, the guys that and ladies that pretty much do anything that you see big when it comes to St. Louis music, fundraisers, and all that. They're it.
So I want to share one last thing
Oh,
because I've been working on this. I'm a big heavy metal guy, and I have a heavy metal vest that has all the
okay.
patches on my favorite bands. And I said, I'm gonna put together an LA Galaxy one. So I started getting as many MLS, as many Galaxy patches as I could, and then I
Right.
started asking my friends around the league, "Hey, if you have anything from your team, send it over." And so far, like there's only been two that have sent me stuff. One was the Minnesota guys who were really cool. Um, the Lunacy podcast. They even sent me like a little coaster, some
Nice.
stickers,
Yep.
and they sent me like a little button. But my God, Jeremy went off the rails, man. He sent me so much stuff from all the St. Louis fans who were so freaking cool. I gotta show you this. First of all, this is my Galaxy um, vest right here. I
Jacket.
got
Yep.
this is from a T4 we had last year. I got all the MLS cups on there that we won. US
Nice.
Open Cup. They have a little thing that says locally grown, globally known. And then the front, I have a bunch of buttons and things for
That
LA
jacket, you're gonna
Galaxy.
need more space soon.
And I want to show you this part right here because so I have the button that my friend that she gave me from
Yep.
the first one, and since then
Look at that.
the
You got
yeah
one, two, three, four, five,
yeah, and then I have a
six.
RSL one at the bottom
Yep.
too.
The
But
reins.
yeah, but
Nice.
these right here, St. Louis. So
That's
thank
what's
you
up.
to the St. Louis fans for being so kind, so welcoming. Um,
Mad
I've
respect
been
to Jeremy.
Yeah, and I've been told by Jeremy and other St. Louis fans, which a lot of a lot of the people follow me on Twitter are from St. Louis, and I'm like, wow, that's so cool, right? So, and they're always saying, hey, you're always welcome down here for a barbecue. I'm like, yes, hell
Hey,
yeah.
Yeah, always have a seat for us. And I think that's the part. And also St. Louis, from what I've learned, just being an expat here, is when it comes to like St. Louis, anyone that's know the St. Louis history when it's especially soccer, and that you kind of know what it is about. There's always a huge community here, and I you in that stadium that we go to, you'll be amazed on if you walk in the hallways, you will most likely see someone that's played in that team that beat England, or one of their grandchildren
Oh
or
wow.
daughters that are literally walking around the stadium. And if you recognize them, they will sit there and just talk your ear off of what they've been through. It's like, it's amazing just knowing that you're walking amongst people that have played 30, 40, 50 years that represent what US soccer is, and they're
Yeah.
all in that same building. It's just, you just happen to know who they are. And
Oh, that's so cool,
I'd
man.
keep telling people, I was like, you know who just walked by? You know who that is? Who that is? And they're like, no. I was like, well, just go see who beat England. That was their granddad. And it's just amazing to me of how many soccer people across St. Louis alone that are part of history. They just that you just have to walk down the hill, and I'm sure you will probably want to move here because there will be you'll have too many stories to cover.
Oh yeah.
But
No,
yes.
I like I said, it's this is where I feel like content creators like us and other people that are journalists that cover the sport have this duty to share these stories and catalog them for not just the people that are audience right now, but for future generations, so they could feel proud of the sport and feel that love and know that it's been around for a lot longer than people give it credit for.
Hmm.
And it's like you said, it's not just U.S. soccer nowadays because I'm an immigrant, you're an immigrant, right? And we all bring a little bit of different flavor from our countries into the United States. And I think with the current state of politics, we've forgotten that this country was founded and established by immigrants, and everybody brings a little bit different something to the table that makes this sumptuous meal that is supposed to be the United States of America.
Yeah, and trust me, there's plenty of reason why this makes it a lot easier than other places, even those that we hold dear to. But still, there's almost no place like here.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just have to appreciate what sometimes you don't have, or you lose, or that goes away for a little bit, and then you get to appreciate it more. Just like soccer, right? For you during COVID, it was gone. For me, for quite a long time, not having a team to support. Even though I lived in Kansas City for so long, I watched one Wizards game, and I said I'm not doing it again. And it took 13 years until St. Louis had a team for me to be happy again. But that's a whole nother discussion.
Speaking of Kansas City, I remember meeting Digital Takiwara. He was
Okay,
really
yeah.
cool, man. He was
I,
digital
I think the
walk and
players,
everything.
yes.
Yeah, that
Yes,
was
and hopefully no
very
more
nice.
Arrowhead Stadium, because when I went, that only game when the Wizards, it was at Arrowhead Stadium, and
Oh
I
yeah,
probably could have seen 10, not 100 maybe people. And when you're coming from Paris, watching PSG play all the way to Kansas, and then you see 100 plus people watching a professional soccer team, I'll
yeah.
take you away quickly.
No, those were some rough days for the
Yeah.
Kansas City Wizards, but
Yes.
they've come a long way, and
Oh yes.
I give them a lot of credit for keeping the sport alive in a part of the country where not a lot of people, at least when I was living in Kansas in 1999, they didn't have a lot of support,
No.
but that's changed since then. Um, so yeah, I was gonna say something. I'm trying to remember. I just want to say thanks to all the St. Louis fans. I actually have like a story that I don't know if I should share or not, but it's something that
Come on.
happened earlier this season. In the match, um, for St. Louis, immediately after the game ended, um, I started walking outside the stadium. And I started leaving the stadium, and there's a LA Galaxy fans. So the supporters have an area that's fenced off that's just for Galaxy supporters only, for the
Right.
supporters clubs. And it's a place where you can hang out, have a few drinks, just relax before go out to the parking lot. And there's two sections. There's one for where it's LA Riot Squad hangs out, which is one of the supporters, and another one where it's mostly Angel City Brigade,
Right.
Galaxians, and the Galaxy Outlaws supporters. And so I'm walking out towards the ACB side, and I see this really young girl dressed all in red, really young. She was blonde, and she's like stumbled her way into that section, and I'm thinking to myself, eh, is she a St. Louis fan? And I get near her, and she's wearing a St. Louis shirt, and I was like, what is she doing walking in here? I wonder if she knows where she's headed. And um, I've only shared this story a couple people, by the way, besides the people who helped me that day. But
Mhm.
uh, I saw her walk in there, and she looked completely lost. And so at that point, I realized, oh my God, this girl is like drunk beyond her mind or something. So I approached her, and I was like, "Hi,
Yeah, like,
hi,
yeah.
how are you? Are you okay? Do you know where you're going?" And she's like, "I don't know where I am." And he left me, and it's like he abandoned me, and I was like, "Who are you
Who?
talking about?" And she couldn't tell me who it was. But long story short, she was obviously very, very drunk. Um, Really young girl, very pretty, and she did not know where she was. She kept saying that she wanted to leave so she could walk back to St. Louis. And
Ooh.
I was like, "No, you're not doing that." She's like, Can I just, tell me where the parking lot is and I can walk out?" And I was like, "No." I was like, let me see if I can get you some help. So I got a hold of one of my friends, and I was like, "Hey Ben, can you please help me with this girl?" And he's like, "Oh my God, hey sweetie, do you know where your phone is?" She's like, "I have my phone. Can you unlock your phone?" I don't remember how.
Oh.
And so then we got my friend Diana. She came over, and it was important for us to have a girl talk to her
Yeah.
because you have two guys talking to this girl that's obviously drunk. That does not the best look, right?
No.
But with Diana's help, we were able to finally get her to remember her phone. And then we had to go through her phone and figure out who her contact was. At first, we thought she was separated from her boyfriend because she said he abandoned me. Damn him. And she was just really upset. And then as we started talking more and more to her, we realized that she had been separated from her brother. And so
Oh,
then we found his phone number and we contacted him and we got a hold of him. And he was pretty drunk too. Just like, it's
that's not
fantastic,
a
man.
good combination.
But we found out, he dropped the pin and he told us where he was. So we walked her out. It was me and Diana. We're like, come on, let's go. We walked her out. We took some photos of her because she was like, can we take some photos? We're like, oh, okay. I mean, this is not the situation for that, but okay, let's take some photos. So we took some photos with her and then we walked her to her brother and they were like, hi, hi.
Mm,
And I just felt it felt really good to help her out. And because I don't, like I said, MLS to me is a family, and I didn't want to see her, get harassed or get hurt or anything like that. And I'm just glad that I was able, with the help of my friends, get her to where she needed to be so she can go home safe and sound. And then after that, I was able to meet some of the St. Louis fans that you could, if you go to my Instagram page, you can see those photos. And so that was nice. It was such an interesting experience that later on, when I got showered with, with all these gifts, I
yeah.
was just like, wow, I wonder if this is a little bit of karma. I don't know. I mean, I didn't expect this, but I'm just glad I was there at the right place at the right time to help her out
And
because
you're the
it could
right
have
person
ended
to,
a lot
yes.
worse if
Yeah.
she would have just wandered off into that parking lot. But yeah, that's the
See,
story I just wanted to
Edgar,
share.
that's why we appreciate you as much because most people would have just go on by their business because, like you said, right? Sometimes good Samaritans get the short end of the stick most of the time. So you've done the right thing, and it happens to be someone from St. Louis. And pre, post, and after, and in between this event, now we're Edgar is always one of us. And clearly, that color goes well on you, my friend. Look at that. We have to
Oh.
take a screenshot and send it straight to Jeremy. He'll probably start dancing or something.
Oh no, Jeremy's been so kind, and actually, like I said, all the St. Louis fans have been so kind to me. I really look forward to the day where I can go there and catch a game. Um, I looked at the schedule this year, and I was like, if
That
the
schedule.
finances, if the finances are there and like the schedule allows, I'll definitely head out to St. Louis because I haven't been out to the Midwest. Jeez, since 2001, I want to say. So it's been a while for me to go out there
We'll hold you to
and
that.
and enjoy that summer press, that humidity. Oh my god.
Well, according to the schedule changes, this year will be the last one because I
Right?
don't think we have much May and June games, or May or June or June and
June,
July
July.
games.
Yeah.
So we won't be dying over there, and where I have two shirts for one game.
Right.
But yes, but so with that said, since I think I always like to close on feel good story, and I think yours is the epitome of that, and pretty much how you the West Coast folks, I will say most from the entire MLS has been the nicest and most open when I started to create content. So I definitely will needed to have one of my West Coast friends to close out season 4 of the Mo Football and Your Soccer Story. So that I appreciate your time, your history, and having one of the OGs and share his story with
Yeah.
us. So
Thank you.
for those that don't know anything about MLS soccer and have been living under a rock for so long, can you tell them how they can reach you guys, watch your shows? I watch them late because, as you can see, I don't sleep much, and you guys are great entertainers. So, can you tell us all how we can watch your show?
Yes, you guys, as you see right here, you guys can follow me on Twitter, Blue Sky, as Edgar Nags. Also on Instagram. My Instagram is completely different from my Twitter contents. If you go there, you'll see I interview fans from any visiting fans, Galaxy fans. I always interview and I try to make them fun. And also, you can follow us, News Across the Galaxy, at nag underscore news. And you can also find us on YouTube as well. Um, I also wanted to say, real quick, before I
Yes,
get out,
sir.
after the tornadoes that tore up parts of St. Louis, I contacted Matt Baker,
Yep.
and I asked him, is there any way that where we can donate, and he linked me to a source, and I was able to share that. And I actually want to say I'm proud that I was able to donate and help, because we had our fires out here, and that was soul crushing. It makes me, I still get really sad because I lived in Pasadena for a while, and that's just south of what happened, the fires in Altadena. So I
Right.
know what it feels like to have that level of loss, and where you feel like you're helpless. So I wanted to put my 2 cents in there and help however I could. So St. Louis, I love you guys. You're always in my heart. So
You're way too kind, Edgar. I don't know. We might have to pry you away from LA Galaxy and make you an honorary St. Louis fan. I don't know. Well, I'll put a petition together for it. How about
thank you
that?
so much.
But
Thank you. I'm
yes, but with
honored.
that say, um, just do the usual, like, subscribe to More Football, but also make sure you cover Edgar because even though he does mostly LA Galaxy, but he's a soccer historian and a guy that we always appreciate. But with that said, as always, love football because there's nothing better than that. And we'll see you soon.